another Yu-Gi-Oh season review. We'll be reviewing season 2 Battle City arc of Yu-Gi-Oh, probably like one of my favorite ones from the Duel Monsters series. Man, yeah, we'll get right down to it, but first, please, if you haven't watched my videos before, welcome. Please, if you enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to Target of Carl on Patreon, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. I put a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh stuff on my channel and other various things you want to check out, and mostly video game walkthroughs, but I been doing like some on-camera stuff in the past few months, or yeah, a few months by this point. So hope you enjoy. And then I will be doing like a review of Jackie Chan Adventures season 2, probably maybe another week or two. I still haven't gotten that. I forgot how long of a season that was, so it's gonna be taking me a little bit of time to get through that. But anyway, Yu-Gi-Oh season 2 Battle City arc. Now we're pretty much like wrapping up the whole situation with what happened on Duelist Kingdom. Everybody relatively trying to get back to normal, but then you got Yami Yugi telling Yugi that he still doesn't know who he is. And this is gonna be like some full spoilers, by the way, just so you know. He still doesn't know who he is, where he came from, because he has like amnesia. The only thing he can recollect that he is like from ancient Egypt, and I believe because I've watched this a lot. I know he said he believes he is like a pharaoh. Yeah, he did mention. Yeah, he recalls him being like a pharaoh in ancient Egypt, but as far as he remembers. But then they was drawn to a history museum. A lot of key players gets drawn to the museum with a curator named Asizu Istar, and she holds a millennium item as well, a millennium necklace that allows her to see the future. She's a very kind of like a very somber tone of voice, talk like this, and it's like, "Good evening, Pharaoh. It's a pleasure to meet you." And it's very soft, kind of like SMAR kind of thing. Like, but when she raises her voice, she means it, but not too high like Kaiba or anything like that, but just high enough for her. Yeah, she bows to him. It's kind of not like a full on like onto the ground, but it's like kind of like a Japanese way of bowing when she shows him this two big ancient tablets. And like on one of these tablets, you show off all these well, there is definitely two tablets, but one I recall more specifically, which they show a lot more, is a tablet that has an on hieroglyphics. Thank you, brain. Of Yugi, who you can tell by the spiky hair, and what looks like Kaiba, which it kind of never looked like Kaiba to me, but he has a blue eyes, a holographic of a blue eyes white dragon above his head, and so that was your key. That was your moment to acknowledge the fact that that's Kaiba. That's she was just pretty much explaining to him and Tail, because she was tagging along. They were supposed to be hanging out for a day just to cheer up Yami Yugi, because he was feeling down in the dumps. That she was warning him about like an ancient evil that's coming to claim your puzzle, and you gotta defeat him and his group of rare hunters, who were like these like kind of like a gang where they wear this purple hooded cloaks that go down hunting rare cards, more specifically Egyptian god cards, who are also on this tablet. And these Egyptian god cards are probably the most powerfulest, probably to this day, the most powerfulest set of Yu-Gi-Oh cards and nothing's beating them. You know, it's honestly they're like very, very, very top tier. I should have brought them out because I have 3 Egyptian god cards on my. I got them tucked away safely. I want to be buried with those things. But if you see my header on my not my Patreon, but my YouTube channel, you see them like the images on my background. I make sure I took a picture of them so you guys can see the images of me holding my Yu-Gi-Oh card, my Egyptian god cards. I never thought I would ever get them in my lifetime, but I'm glad I got them. But anyway, you got Slifer the Sky Dragon, who has like, each Egyptian god card has their own little set of like unique abilities. Slifer the Sky Dragon has like a 0 attack and defense points, but because they require 3 sacrifices, not just 2, to summon them on the field, but only people who are connected to the like the the ancient Egypt by bloodline, like Kaiba, Yuki, Merrick, just for example. The only ones that can actually handle summoning the Egyptian god cards because of their birthright, and I think it's Siju as well, maybe. But anyway, Cypher has an ability where if whatever amount of cards you have in your hand determines the Cypher's attack and defense strength, like 1,000 per card. So if you have 3 cards in your hand, then Cypher's attack and defense has 3,000 attack and defense points. Also, his secondary power is that anytime an opponent summons a monster on the field in attack or defense, whether a special summon or normal summon, Cypher has like a second mouth. He got 2 sets of jaws, one for main attacks and one right between his eyes almost, and that's the second mouth that he uses for like a special ability where he deducts 2,000 whatever mode your opponent's monster is in. Cypher deducts 2,000 attack or 2,000 defense right away from them. They don't destroy them, but just unless they actually has exactly 2,000 or less attack or defense, they are automatically destroyed. They don't have nothing left to sustain them essentially, and they just destroy it automatically. So if they have like 2,000 attack or defense that's or at least higher than 2,000 attack or defense, like at least by 50 points higher at the least, they can still manage to stay on the field to defend you. But Cypher is powerful on his own. I love Cypher. But then you got Obelisk the Tormentor, and his unique ability, because he automatically has 4,000 attack and defense, compared to Cypher and the Winged Dragon of Ra, who normally starts off with 0 attack and defense points. Obelisk has 4,000 attack and defense off the bat. But his unique ability is that whatever remaining monsters you have on your side of the field, for 1 turn, Obelisk can absorb their attack and defense and add it to his own. Now, of course, in the anime, they made there's like an anime BS where it turns his power to infinite. At least most of the time, but that's not how it works in real life. They did every now and again do the real life ability. But then you got Winged Dragon of Ra, which is supposed to be like the most powerfulest Egyptian god card, where he has like at least 3 different abilities. One of is which that if you sacrifice 3 monsters, their attack and defense gets added to Ra's attack and defense points. And then there's another ability where he has his Phoenix form, where he can like turn his Phoenix form and just obliterate every, if I remember correctly, every card, monster and trap card off the side of the opponent's field completely, or just the monsters. I can't remember which one, but just completely annihilating it in your opponent's side of the field. Of course, Ra has to go immediately to the graveyard. And then the third ability Ra has is that if he is summoned like special summon, because if you special summon Egyptian god cards like from the graveyard to the field, they only can stay, magic cards affecting them can only last 1 turn. like Monster Reborn, and they got to go back to the graveyard. So if Rod gets summoned this way, then and he has automatically no attack and defense points. But his third ability allows you to subtract whatever amount of life points you have, and all except for 100 life points in real life, but only 1 point, up to the point of 1 point in the anime, to increase Ra's attack and defense points about that amount. Make sure he's always the powerfulest one on the field, depending on if you have very high life points, at least high enough to warrant you beating one of your opponent's monsters. But yeah, these cards are devastating, and of course they Shizu explained that matter of fact, it was Kaiba who she probably brought to the if I remember correctly, he came in second, and like she invited Kaiba to meet her to talk about the same tablet and the history second, and she convinced him to just to lure out these rare hunters to get her brother, who's the main villain of this arc, Merrick Istar, who's an awesome villain, by the way, because he is on a hunt for Asizu's, because Asizu managed to snatch Abba's Tormentor, because her brother managed to, because she's trying to hide away these god cards, but her brother managed to snatch up 2 of the 3. So she wants Kaiba to, she can Kaiba Abba's Tormentor, convince them to hold a Battle City tournament to lure these rare hunters, because Kaiba wants those adjacent god cards for himself to be number 1 and beat Yugi. But there's more to it than what he realized. But Caesar decided to like humor him pretty much. And then Merrick, he was introduced when he managed to mind control Bandit Keith, because he has an adjacent Millennium item, the Millennium Rod, who turns out in the past used to belong to Kaiba's ancestor. And the Millennium Rod, well, in the manga and Japanese anime, is like a hidden dagger also in there, but they couldn't never show that in the anime because kids were watching. He actually killed people with that thing in the manga, including his own father, which we'll get into that in a moment, because Merrick's backstory is kind of raw, and they didn't show much of it in the English dub, but you get the gist of it, because he had an abusive father who was super dedicated to because they were tomb keepers. They was raised as tomb keepers, not to allow themselves to venture out into the world. They gotta stay bunkered in, awaiting for the pharaoh's return. That's their job, their mandate. They would stick to that. No bending. There's no bending with him. And anytime Merrick disobeyed as a child, he was severely abused. But then he got a subordinate called named Odeon, who pretty much was adopted essentially by Merrick's mother, who died during Merrick's childbirth. But they always looked at Odeon as like a brother to Asizu and Merrick. And these two managed to, as best they could, keep Merrick's vengefulness and anger under control for the most part. But because of the severe abuse, Merrick acquired a split personality. But managed to keep it under control. But when that split personality came out, it's so menacing. Probably one of the most menacing anime villains that I've seen, because he was super sadistic. He straight up murdered their father in retaliation for all that verbal and some fair bit of verbal abuse and physical abuse. I think in the manga, he actually whipped Merrick with an actual whip here and there, because Asizu and Odeon had to patch him up and bandage him up a few times. Yeah, so it was a lot to take in for anime dub, but it's you get to see like the growth of a villain in real time. Or then, of course, like I said, you know, when he got older, he decided to, like, became resentful of the Pharaoh, because if it wasn't for him, you know, his father wouldn't be so gung-ho about like keeping him locked away just for his return, that he didn't feel like it was ever going to be. So it's like, because of you, I had a rough childhood, because you never came back. If you would have came back like you promised, my father wouldn't have been so abusive to me, and I could have lived my life like want to venture out and see the world, but I couldn't do that because I was trapped, and it was because of you. So he held like a massive grudge against Yami-Yugi, and sought his power to become Pharaoh himself. That's pretty much his goal. And in order to do that, he has to beat Yugi in a duel to claim his Millennium item, so that way he can be allowed his power. That was the rule. But then using the Millennium item, he thought he'll be able to get an easy win by dueling Little Yugi by mind controlling Bandit Keith, because he picked him up in the middle of the ocean when Pegasus sent him through a trapdoor and essentially, you know, threw him out of Duelist Kingdom the hard way. And then when Yugi realized who he was doing, because he was in, Keith was underneath his robes, like a Red Hunter robes, and only way Yugi realized who he was dealing with was all the heavy amount of machine monsters that he was doing in this little warehouse area. And then of course, then you realize that he was being mind controlled, because like Merrick pretty much introduced himself through the voice, you know, as Keith was like, he was using Keith as a puppet, essentially, just talking through him. And you know, Merrick's plan in this moment is like, okay, you know, I don't want to have to deal with, I take his puzzle, he can't change without this puzzle. So Yugi, not believing he's worth a damn in dueling without the help of the Pharaoh, thinking it's gonna be an easy win. But little Yugi can hold his own, of course, not as well as he, you know, did in the final parts of the series, but he knows his stuff, you know, because he do quite a bit. Even though at this juncture he still required a fair bit of help with his alter ego. But then it was like a intense scene when like Bakura followed him when Yugi was lured into this warehouse, then using his Millennium Ring broke the link between the rod and Keith, and then with little control, you know, Merrick had left, convinced Keith to like smash that puzzle. And then in turn, Bakura, you know, set this place on fire. So when eventually Tristan and Joey eventually found where Yugi was, thanks to the smoke from the fire, Yugi didn't want to leave without his puzzle and without the spirit. Didn't want to leave him trapped in this fire. So with like, he's so good with puzzles. The fact that under pressure in like a burning building, and these are not tiny pieces, but like by the size of like, you know, like the width of like a Snicker bar, that kind of size to it, but in pieces. It's like he has to put those things together, and these, like, I don't know how many pieces are there in that Millennium puzzle to make the puzzle in the first place, but it's gotta be at least 50 to maybe 75 pieces, you know, if that. Man, he had to assemble that on the go while this, you know, burning warehouse made of wood is going down like kindling, and he's like, and then he's passing out. Hey, but he managed to put it together, but he passed out at the last minute, so he could not escape on his own. But luckily his friends got there and got him out. But then they realized they got like a serious threat on their hands, a new one that's probably more dangerous than Pegasus, and more sadistic too. He has no qualms with literally like burning a child alive, or at least leaving them to die. But then fast forward when like Kaiba announced his tournament. Joey ran into one of the rare hunters who, with the use of what we later found out was a fake copy of the Exodia pieces, which I don't know how you make a fake copy without the original, but whatever. He lost his red eyes to this rare hunter, and it's up to Yugi to, like, you know, next day, on the first day of Battle City, and him being the first one to, like, no surprise to Kaiba, who's monitoring everybody's dual discs, those new dual discs that's attached on your arm that he later invented for the tournament. And the new dueling system was like so good. It looks so cool. It's probably my favorite one. But then you see like the different series, they kind of progress that further along from card game on motorcycles to like holographic, you know, geysers and stuff like that. Is like awesome. But Kaiba, I mean, like Yugi dueling this rare hunter. I don't think I even got his name, but just rare hunter, just generic rare hunter. But it's like a nice little beginning of the Battle City tournament, where much to Kaiba's glee, because he knew, you know, from his computer system that this rare hunter is using like fake cards with like a little, like a film or something like that on the back of them, where he got these contacts where he knows whenever a particular Egyptian, not Egyptian, but Exodia piece card is coming up, he knows exactly what he's, you know, going to be drawing. So he got like at least 3 sets of each. So he's like are like pretty much using stalling tactics, just like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of Duelists. When I'm playing that, it's the same thing. He's using stalling tactics like Swords of Revealing Light or strong defense monsters to pretty much stall until he eventually acquired the necessary pieces needed to get all 5 pieces of Exodia in his hand to claim immediate victory. Now, kind of looking on this, okay, I don't want to, even though the rules say we shut down any duel that and a player is using like things like who's cheating in some form or fashion, like using fake cards, or at least like cards with like you know, little film so you can see which I don't know how they found out that he's probably using contact lenses, but you know, it's one of those things that, you know, the anime is using like BS logic in, but somehow they knew. And Kaiba wants to see, okay, you trounced me using those same cards. I want to see how you do it when the shoe's on the other foot. And the duel is amazing because Joey had to keep quiet, otherwise it's like according to like their, you know, Yugi and the rare hunters bet, Joey cannot reveal what he has in his cards. Otherwise he'll rip up the red eyes, that kind of thing. So it's like, you know, Yugi's like, don't worry, you don't have to tell me, I still got this, you know, no matter what he has. And then slowly but surely, when because like I mentioned in the last review, how smart Yugi is when it comes to like quickly picking up how games work, or picking up the strategy of his opponent. You know, it probably take a round or 2, but he picks it up so quick. So he managed to figure out, yeah, you got all 5 pieces of Exodia. It's kind of clear what you're doing now, because all these stolen tactics, you're clearly waiting on a particular hand, and only at this moment in juncture, when people do that, it's usually because they have 5 pieces of Exodia in their deck. Because there's other cards down the line, years after, way after this story, this episode, where like you have certain things like later in the episode, Bakura has this new deck where you got this Destiny board, but instead of in his hand, he it's just like 1 turn kills kind of situation. 1 turn kills is like certain cards where you play them in like a particular order or in a particular way, you automatically win the duel. Like Destiny board, you got a trap card with the letter F, that and each preceding card up to the next 4 cards are magic cards that's continuous spell cards, and they spell out final, but in the Japanese it spell out death. But when he flipped each turn, he gains a letter until it ultimately turns out final, so he gets a 1-turn kill automatic win. With the Zodiac, same thing, but it's all in your hand. You get an automatic not 1 turn, but pretty much an automatic kill win, essentially. Yugi figured that out and managed to like do things like Lifesaver Sword to remove from play a few turns 1 random card from his hand, which managed to be 1 Exodia piece, so he could not complete the Exodia completion of his next turn. And then of course Yugi used his own version of stall tactics by using like a trap card that negates his next draw, so he has to essentially skip because he can't play nothing else because he got Exodia pieces. But then Yugi managed to beat him with a trap card, not deck destruction virus, but something similar to the destruction chain, where like if because he the Rare Hunter made the foolish mistake by putting 1 Exodia piece just to defend him, because he has no cards to defend himself other than the Exodia pieces for the time being. He has spare, so he used 1 of them to defend him. But then Yugi lured him into that trap by playing that trap card, where like the effect is it doesn't destroy the monster on the field, but any monster in your hand or deck that is similar to this card, like the same copy of this card, all destroyed goes directly to the graveyard, effectively destroying his deck in a way, and his complete strategy. He couldn't do nothing else. And then Yugi's monsters managed to land a direct attack, win him the duel. And then of course further along, you see Joey starting showing his flexing his dueling muscle a bit, or at least building his dueling muscles, because if Duelist Kingdom was the beginner stage for Joey, this is like the normal stage, like in a video game. Like you got like beginner, normal, then expert. And I gotta say, this will be like Joey's kind of like beginner stage. Normal stage, where he's like slowly getting from beginner into normal, average duelist player. And his first duel was against this player, Esperova, and Yu-Gi-Oh has a nasty habit of using a lot of psychic, or either real psychics or fake psychic duelists and throughout a lot of the series. It's not even just with like Mai, who faked being a psychic, or Esperova, who's also fake being a psychic, but you got like in Yu-Gi-Oh Arc 5, there's this little girl who actually is like a fortune teller or a psychic. Same thing with Yu-Gi-Oh GX. We got what's his name from the Society of Light, forgot that leader's name. Sartorius. He's like a fortune teller / psychic kind of situation. So Yu-Gi-Oh in the series kind of like a nasty habit having a lot of these kind of duelists. But anyway, Joey, without any help other than the encouragement with his friends, had his hand, because he knew this kid was faking this somehow, but he couldn't prove it, because like Esperova made a stupid mistake, because he got an earpiece and his brother's looking behind Joey on the top building, where Yugi on the opposite building next to them noticed what's going on. He's like, Joey got this, even though these people are like, even though I don't know why he didn't try to. Of course, they didn't have cell phones at that time, or at least like showcase any kind of use of a cell phone, but could have like done something to let Joey know. But he wanted Joey to like handle this on his own 2 feet, because that's the crux of Joey's arc. To become a better duelist, he couldn't always rely on his friends. That's what he liked to handle things on his own for the most part, because he got the kind of bravado, or that little teenage boys at a certain point, like, you know, was taught like having that you gotta be a man, you know, behave yourself like, because, you know, you gotta all be a man, gotta handle things on your own, because he always got that, like, you know, fake masculinity kind of situation, you know. He's always got to show himself to be like a big man to prove his manlyhood kind of situation, because he deal with guys like Kaiba, or just certain people like Kaiba. You know, he feels like he get put down, or at least put down, and like felt like insecure. You know, Joey, you know, I gotta say, has like a great arc overall throughout the series. It felt like he started out as this insecure, always got to prove himself and prove his manhood, but over time he realized he doesn't have to, you know, do that. He knows he's a great duelist from all what he learned and what he managed to do on his own. And this was like the turning point, at least one of the turning points for him. At least this is like his beginning stages of his growth. That while he's in his hand, and like, you know, Esperoba's little brothers looking from afar using binoculars, saying like, oh, he has 2 graceful dice in his hand. But I don't know why I don't know, graceful, because there's graceful dice and skull dice. If you ever watch me play Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of Duels, I played Joey. You can watch my Joey video on my YouTube channel. But there's a graceful dice card, there's a quick play card, there's a magic card that, well, in real life, if you roll the dice, depending on the roll determines the number of attack points increase. Like 1 equals 100, and up to the point of 6 making 600, that kind of thing. But in the anime is like multiplied times the number kind of situation, but that's not how it works. But then, like, he also had a skull dice, which is a trap card, and then the graceful dice has a green dice, while the skull dice has a red dice. These people talking about like, oh, he got 2 graceful dice card. If you know what graceful dice is, you know what color on the illustration should be, which is green. You should know using binoculars that is a green and a red one. You should know, if you know what graceful dice is, you should know what skull dice is, which is red. I always thought that was odd how you confuse the two. But anyway, Joey realized, like, Aspero was faking, like, I can see that you have 2 graceful dice cards in your hand. And Joey's like, the fuck are you talking about? And it's like, and he thinks to himself, yeah, I knew this guy's a cheat. He says I got 2 graceful dice with cards in hand, and he was almost right. But I think I know how to trick this son of a gun. So he put the 2 face down cards. Now, according to that Asperoba, I don't even know how true this is in the anime. It never showcased this. But according to him, you only can play graceful dice once per turn, which is crap, because in the real life you can play, if you have 3 graceful dice cards, and if you have more than one in your hand and you put them face down, you can play them both. They're quick play cards, you can use them both. The only limit is to how many copies you can have in your deck, which is no more than 3. But he got a big surprise when he played skull dice and graceful dice for his Swordsman of Landstar to take down Asperoba's I forgot his doggone card. It's like but anyway, to take on one of his monsters. Now, you know, everybody around who's watching, including Rex Raptor, who lost to Asperoba because Roba's cheating, see that how like a fake he is when Joe is like, hey, yeah, see, I knew you was lying. You said I had 2 graceful dice cards in my hand, but as you can see, I only have 1 graceful dice and a skull dice. And like, you know, yeah, I'm pretty sure you got somebody in high places has been feeding you information this whole time. And then it's like, yeah, busted. And then like, you know, Yugi's sitting there like, yeah, proud, like, yeah, Joey, now you're talking, now you're in control. And then of course, like, Mokuba being like essentially like a ref for the tournament, violate anybody who's breaking the rules, busted these brothers, and like knows that Yugi's looking on far, and like listen to these kids' story that, like, you know, our brothers, like, you know, always been looking out for us when, you know, since like we got let go from the circus because they're circus folk, I guess. And our brother always kept the safe from the bullies, especially because he was such a great duelist, and they was impressed by that. And of course, Mokuba, took pity on them because little brother stories always get to him because he was in that same boat in orphans with Seto when they was young, and the bullies always picking on Mokuba because he was so small, and Kaiba always looked out for him. So it's like, okay, I'll cut your brother some slack, but no more cheating. Yeah, because I catch you next time, you're out of here. Like, that's it. So Joey ended up winning and took Asperoba's Jinzo card, which became like one of the staples of Joey's deck from throughout like Duel Monsters from this moment forward. And of course, Joey has a few other run-ins with Yugi's old opponents like Mako Tsunami and Weevil Underwood, who he beat both and acquired these locator cards. It was kind of like Star Chest in Duel of Kingdom, but instead of 10, you just need 6. And they're supposed to show, put all of them together, gives you a location via the dual disc of where the final tournament will be held, or at least the semifinals will be held. And of course, Kai will be participating as well, so he'll be acquiring 6 locator cards, which he picks up very easily thanks to his Egyptian God card. And then Yugi, his next opponent is this character I think was very cool, called Arcana, who's supposed to be he's like a magician, kind of like Deborah Copperfield kind of guy. And he's wearing this mask, but he's got this magician's kind of outfit and like a top hat. And challenges Yugi to a duel in his underground kind of like a circus arena kind of situation. And he claimed himself to be the real true master of the Dark Magician. And of course, he has like a alternate artwork of the Dark Magician, who's more of a reddish purple color. No, just more of a reddish color as opposed to Yugi's purple color Dark Magician, the standard. And Arcana's Dark Magicians look more like villainous too. But they duel in this little area in the center arena, circle arena, and like they're like not bolted, but it's like essentially cuffed to the corners of the arena. And like these dark energy discs, whenever your life points lower in this match, they slowly start to come towards you. Essentially, you're supposed to send your mind to the Shadow Realm. But in the Japanese and manga, these are legit fucking buzzsaws that not supposed to send your mind to the Shadow Realm or to hell. They just essentially take your legs off and you die from bleed out when you lose. That was, I mean, that's like dude, that's intense. And we knew that as kids back then. Like, those are buzzsaws. What are you talking about? It clearly they're buzzsaws. You're calling it our dark energy discs, and it's like when we just went with it, but we knew for a fact those are buzzsaws. You was gonna cut these dudes' legs off. Holy shit. But but that increases the stakes for Yugi. Of course, and I like this tit for tat. This is, this is like, it's not like a jobber type of a bad guy for Yugi, but like a higher degree of a jobber that actually knows his stuff, because he kind of put Yugi through a bit of a ringer, because this is a part in their match where I always get a kick out of. I love seeing where they manage to both summon their Dark Magicians on the field, and they each turn, like, I'll lay one card face down, so will I. And I love the voice actor of Arcana, and he talks like this: the true master of the Dark Magicians. It's not like that, but something similar to that. Your turn, little Yugi. His laugh is like so comedic. I love it. It's like, and it's like I said, like, you know, Yugi put a couple of face cards, you know, a couple of cards face down. Arcana does the same. He put one card face down. Arcana does the same, and he put like at least one final card face down, and then so does Arcana. And Arcana made this like funny little note that I thought was hilarious. It's like, well, we're not gonna get anywhere if we keep laying cards face down, so we might as well do something. And it's like it cracked me up, and it's like I like he has a point, and like when they get a little bit self-aware. Like, yeah, you're not gonna get anywhere if we just keep putting stuff face down. So somebody got to do something. So we got like each one has a dark magician on the field, one monster each. So dark magician versus dark magician, and they both have 4 cards face down. So they both start counteracting each other. And Arcana uses like an animated version of a guillotine, not a real card, but it's anime specified card called like Nightmare Steel Chain, where it's pretty much put the dark magician in like a guillotine, like a sharp blade, and it's like, you know, pretty much supposed to destroy the dark magician, just pretty much take him off the field. But Yugi counter with his magical hats, which it shouldn't work this way, but whatever, it's fun to see. It's entertaining, and it's pretty much like, okay, conceal the dark magician, does the hack trick, the thing comes down, destroys one of the hats, dark magician's not there, and you know, dark magician lasts another round. But this is like, you know, Arcana starts to get into his backstory, which I kind of feel sympathy for. His probably more sympathetic rare hunters out of the series, where he was this like famous magician, and one of his tricks that him and his wife, who's his like stage assistant, been doing for years, and something went wrong, caused an accident where it scarred his face. His girl she tried to help him, but he was too, because he was like kind of vain, because he always, you know, thought well of his beautiful image, especially while he's on stage. But then he, in the anime, he kind of pushed her away. But I think in the manga in Japanese, she died somehow. There's a lot of death in the anime, and I mean the Japanese dub and the manga. But then he was like, you know, basically like turned destitute after like you know paying off medical bills, and he's gotten depressed. He haven't done any more shows. He ran out of money, and then he ran to Merrick, who promised him his wife back if he do what he asked, which is take down Yugi, or at least help him acquire the Millennium Puzzle. And of course, he agreed, because he still loved his wife, and he regret turning her away. And then Yugi trying to convince him, like, dude, like, he's lying to you, he's manipulating you, and trying to get you to work for him. He's not gonna give you your wife back. It's all BS. And then Arcana showing him, a lit room behind him, where it looks like a lady sitting in a chair behind a curtain, being extra quiet. It's like, see, little Yugi, see little Yugi, you know, you shouldn't be so quick to judge. Merrick always come through. Soon we'll be together, young Catherine. Maybe we'll go to Hawaii or Tahiti or wherever you want to go. You should be a little more trusting, Yugi. And it's like, why is she so quiet then if she's right there? And of course, Yugi won. Still, and then like this is like a moment. It's like kind of remind me of like the Kaiba and Yugi duel on top of the Duelist Kingdom Castle, where Yami Yugi, even though he won and was able to get himself out of the cuffs, he didn't budge when trying to go over and help Arcana. That's when literally instantly switched back and took control. It's like, and ran over there, and like, I forgot how he got the key out of the locked box, where it's like supposed to be in between their legs. Each one has their own key to unlock themselves, but Luigi managed to get him out the trap so the energy disc doesn't cut him. But then he's still kind of like a little bit like lost his mind a bit. He's like a little out there, because as soon as he tried to crawl towards his Catherine, it was just a dummy. He's so out there he doesn't even acknowledge that fact. But then then Merrick took over his mind, sent Arcana's mind to the Shadow Realm immediately. 0 F's given, and like told Yugi that, like, I will claim your puzzle. And it was like really effed up, and I felt bad. And it was like the first rare hunter, I think the only rare hunter I actually felt any sympathy for, because this dude just wanted his wife back, and Merrick manipulated this man into doing his bidding, promising something that he wasn't going to deliver. And he just sent his mind to the Shadow Realm. So it's like a awful fate for a character, and I really felt bad. Still do. But then the next duel Yugi goes into in Battle City against this character Strings, who actually has a Slifer the Sky Dragon card. And this duel is awesome. I love this duel. It's one of my favorites. And it's like right by, it's always like a famous, it's kind of like a same kind of like a area that is in a lot of anime, where it's like this bridge. I'm pretty sure it's like a famous area in Japan. There's a little bridge, and underneath is a little lake area that you can walk along, and it's like a little hill over the side of grass and everything like that. And this little stream comes, through underneath this little bridge. It's almost in every anime. I've seen it in Bleach. I've seen it in My Hero Academia. It's almost in Yu-Gi-Oh! I've seen it almost every anime. It's like, wow, like, people love this area for some reason. And one day when I go over to like Japan, I want to see this area for myself. I want to, screenshot this area and show it to a Japanese local and say, here, what's this? If you know what this area is, if you're watching this in the future on YouTube, leave a comment below and let me know what this area is, so I'll know for certain from you guys. But I want to point out this area to like a Japanese person from Japan and say, where is this area is, so that way I can physically be there in the same spot as every anime character that I ever watched over the years since I was a little kid, and be in the same spot. I want to stand in the same area as Yugi stood in as he dueled Strings. But anyway, I want to state that, like, once again, I love this duel. Strings, who never spoke on his own, but he's a mime, like a punk rock kind of mime. But he just, Merrick just decided, yeah, I'll just do it through him and do it myself. It's kind of, he does the Thanos approach. Fine, I'll just do it myself without actually doing it himself. But he managed to summon his Slifer the Sky Dragon, and Yugi was kind of overwhelmed. And it's like, literally on his knees when further into the duel, because he's like, he had a control during the beginning of the duel, but he's kind of like put into his like nightmare steel cage, forcing him kind of like Swords of Revealing Light, but only for 2 turns instead of 3. So he's kind of stuck. And then Merrick managed to summon his Slifer the Sky Dragon. And like, no matter what monster you can put on the field, Slifer the Sky Dragon uses his second mount to, lower his strength. But then also, Merrick also had this little extra added protection, Revival Jam, where you got this 5-card system, fit out perfectly. And I want to let you know what happened on my gameplay one day. This is years ago when I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelists. I never thought it would happen, but I played it exact same way as it did on this anime. I was flabbergasted. I wish I was streaming at that time so I can kind of screenshot it and post it so I can show you guys. I managed to pull off the Yugi move that you see in this episode, at least this 3-parter episode. Was it 4-parter? Three-parter episode. But Merrick had this card system. He has Revival Gem that summons to the field after being destroyed, so it's always at a protection. But in the real world, you gotta give up 1,000 life points to bring him back to the field. But then he got like this trap card, Gen Defender, where as long as you have Revival Gem on the field, the opponent, if he tries to attack a different monster on the field, Revival Gem will intercept and it'll take that attack instead. And then you got a magic card called I forgot what it's called, just a card revival or something like that. I mean, you can easily look it up or watch the anime on Hulu so you can see for yourself. But it allows him to draw cards every time a monster is special summoned onto the field. And then you guys, infinite cards is another magic card, a continuous spell, where it's like there's no limit to both players to have cards in their hands, which is like, no more than 6. Anything extra, you have to toss something to the graveyard to keep it at a particular limit. But with infinite cards, he essentially can get around that rule, so he can have as many cards in his hands as possible. That means while he has Sniper on the field, as completion to this little combo, there's no limit to his strength because there's no limit to Merrick's hand. And like, yeah, Yugi was so overwhelmed, he's like dropped to his knees, and then Kaiba, who was following, tracking Yugi, and out of the side, it's like, "Get up, Yugi! A champion doesn't fall to his knees to our opponent," or something like that. He's like, it's kind of like Black Panther's father in Black Panther movie, and when T'Challa's in like the essentially like the afterlife, kneeling to his father, and like the father's like, "Get up. Yeah, like, a king does not kneel," or something like that. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. A king should not be on his knees. It's essentially of that same rhetoric. Like a champion, a king does not kneel. He does not fall to his knees, essentially. And it's like Kaiba low key was encouraging him, but he's just like in his own asshole way, trying to make sure Yugi wins this, or at least last long enough so he can figure out a way to beat. If you can figure out, then Kaiba can exploit it later. It's kind of like Lex Luthor in a way. It's like, he'll do a good deed in order to exploit it later on in his own way. But Yugi and Kaiba figured out a way how to beat Slifer, and it's ingenious. I never picked it up right away when I first saw this episode years ago, but that's why to this day is one of my favorite episodes, because it's like really showcase the brilliance in strategy when it comes to Yugi. When it comes to these card games, it's like tit for tat kind of situation. Like it's like it really forces you to use like a bit of your brain trying to outthink your opponent. That's what Yu-Gi-Oh is. It's like when you play the card game, basically you have to use a fair bit of strategy to outthink your opponent when they play, especially when they play a good strategy or a good hand. You got to figure out a way to counteract that. That's what it boils down to when it comes to this game. So they figure out, and wait for it, he figured out that in order to beat something like a card like Slifer, who has no limit to his strength but use his own strength against him, because if there's no limit to your opponent's hand, there is clear limit to the deck. Because if your opponent keeps drawing cards, eventually your deck out and you will automatically lose, because you can't keep drawing more cards. It's not there. So what Yugi managed to do is use brain control to take control over Revival Gem. He uses Buster Blade to destroy Revival Gem, but use brain control, which is not how you use it in real life. But he used brain control to take over revival gem as it's reviving, but since it revived on his side of the field, no, uh, uh, I'm pretty sure he used Monster Reborn at some point. Yeah, he used Monster Reborn to bring back his Buster Blader, but he used Brain Control to take over Revival Gem, and after it was destroyed, and while it's reforming itself, since it's a brand new card on his side of the field, Slifer has to use his second mouth immediately as per his own direction to destroy it. But since Revival Gem automatically has to reform itself, but still Brain Control is still in play, Revive still on Yugi's side of the field. So he forced Merrick into this dangerous loop where summon, attack, revive, draw, and then attack again, revive, draw, summon, attack, and this dangerous loop, and like with his own card forcing him to keep drawing, he eventually decked out. I did that same move somehow. I mean, it wasn't a continuous loop, but it did that at least a couple of times before it just stopped, and because the game wasn't designed that way to BS like that. But I managed to do that myself on Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist years ago, and it blew my mind. I can't believe I managed to pull that. I didn't use Brain Controls. I think I used Snatch and Steal, but I managed to take over Revival Jam, and I use Monster Born to summon Revival Gem on my side of the field, and since the AI Slifer the Sky Dragon was on the field, he had to use the second mouth, then revived, and it came up, and then like the opponent had to draw a card, and I was like, it only lasted a couple of turns and didn't keep going until he decked out, but I still managed to pull it off regardless, even if it lasted for a little while. That blew my mind. I was so proud of myself that I pulled a Yu-Gi-Oh move, and it's like, my God, like it actually fucking works. God, it's like, I'm telling you, I was so proud of myself. I'm sure if anybody else managed to do that, but man, oh man, that was like a highlight of my day that day. But anyway, he managed to get Slifer the Sky Dragon. So Yugi has a God card, Kaiba has a God card, and Merrick only has one God card left now, which is the strongest one. And then Merrick, while on his way to Battle City, because he's on a boat trying to travel there, because he's been on his way to Battle City for the past several episodes. But he was using his rare hunters to keep tabs on Yugi's friends and wait till the moment that's right to strike to kidnap them, which he did, in order to brainwash Joey to use against Yugi, since like you won't be able to duel correctly against one of your best friends, so you'll automatically have to lose or give up or lose on purpose or defeat your friend and cause his mind to go to the shadow realm, and that was his strategy. But before that happens, his friends and multiple mans got kidnapped by the rare hunters, so Yugi and Kaiba was forced into this tag duel against this other two rare hunters, Lumis and Umbra, who they had like the second double duel of the series, like a 2v2 tag team duel of the entire series. Haven't seen since like Parrot and Dox. But Lumis and Umbras had these kind of mask type of archetype cards where you got like Mask of Restrict trap card that prevents them from summoning any stronger monsters, so pretty much negating their Egyptian god cards temporarily, at least until the end of the 4-parter episode of this little duel. And then got these like Mask of the Accursed and Mask of Dispel, pretty much hindering Yugi's side of things, whereas like he's losing 500 life points with each of those two mask cards, so it keeps draining him until eventually he dispel them altogether with like a summon and other tactics. But this is the first time that Yugi and Kaiba had to work together, but Kaiba wasn't having none of that. He like maintained like, I can win this all by myself. I beat these two by myself before without without any of your help. It's like, of course, Kaiba was like the complete definition of an asshole. Of course, he's based off Kazuki Takahara's interaction with this guy who wouldn't teach him how to play a game back in the day, and he was so arrogant, and that's what the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh decided to base Seto Kaiba off of. This same arrogant prick that wouldn't teach him how to play a simple card game or just a game in general. So that's the basis of Kaiba. It'd be funny to know if he ever ran into that guy, or anybody happened to know that said guy, pointed this character out to him and say, "This is totally you." That'd be funny if that ever happened at some point throughout these years. But then, these tag team duels, Yugi had like a move where like neither, well, he didn't know, but Yugi knew his cards was kind of useless, but except for one, but is useful in the graveyard, the Beast of Guilford, which lowers an opponent's monsters attack points by like 500 or no 700, but it required him to be sacrificed or at least destroyed in some manner to be into graveyard. But he has card destruction. Now he can also in turn destroy the opponents, force the opponents to discard their entire hand and draw new cards. But he doesn't know what he's worried about, what Kaiba has in his hand, because if Kaiba has something good in his hand, he'll be forcing him to ditch the entire hand and probably ruin his strategy wherever he might be cooking up. But then, in a very low-key moment and a cool moment for Kaiba, one of many, he was like, "What are you waiting for? Because of your sloppy dueling, I literally has nothing in my entire hand that can help me." And then that was like a signal to you. This is like Kaiba wants me to discard his hand. He wants to discard his hand. But then it's like a little bit of trust. Like Kaiba's like, give him like maybe a little bit of inch of trust, because throughout this duel, it's like he knows, like, you know, they've been checking each other. It's like Kaiba doesn't like rely on anybody, but the fact that he managed to like, okay, I'm gonna like give him a little bit of inch because I'm stuck in this moment and I have no choice. Because like there's been a couple of times when Yugi had to protect Kaiba from being taken out, because they're literally on top of building this glass ceiling where it's got these little explosive devices on the corner of these little glass things that they're standing on, and once the life point counter reaches 0 on any one of them, the glass breaks, and whoever's standing on it falls to their death on this tall ass building. Of course, they said like, "Oh, your mind just go to the shadow realm," but no, you still freaking fall into your death. You see how hardcore some anime can be, even for a simple card game, and it was like intense, especially if you're watching the Japanese version. But Yugi decided to use the card destruction. Everybody's like discard their hand, draw new cards. But then because of that, Kaiba managed to be able to use Monster Reborn to summon his Blue Eyes White Dragon from the graveyard, because he can still special summon his stronger cards. He just can't tribute them in the normal fashion. So now he has the strongest card in play thanks to Yugi. And thanks to Beast of Guilford in the graveyard, one of the because like Kaiba attack lowered their life points to like a very small amount now, but they in turn summon Death's Guardius that has like a 200 higher life points than the Blue Eyes White Dragon, not life points but attack points than the Blue Eyes White Dragon. But then thanks to Beast of Guilford and Yugi's graveyard, he lowered that monster's attack points by 700 until making Kaiba's Blue Eyes the stronger still, and destroyed it, lowering their life points even further. So it's like, then fast forward, managed to like eventually summon his opposite tormentor, take down Umbra, causing his mind to go to the shadow realm, and he falls not to his death, but he managed to pull like a little string on his little cord that's like a little chain to his hood, and it lets out like a parachute, so it didn't fall technically to his death. But I'm pretty sure in the Japanese it wasn't. I haven't seen the Japanese. I don't know if I want to see him actually fall to a legit death. You can let me know if that actually happens. But yeah, he's gone, and essentially, Luma's the only one left, and it's like it's 2v1, and it's like. He's no way he can defend against no card in his entire deck can take on his the obelisk, so he's pretty much like automatic forfeit. And Merrick sends his mind to the shower room and tell them like, yeah, meet your friends at the docks. They go to the docks. Joey had to, Yugi had to do mind control Joey, but then through the power of his friendship and the red eyes managed to get through to Joey, and it was like a very emotional scene. And despite anybody trying to interfere, because Kaiba like tried to interfere, knowing like because they're hooked to this giant, both of them are hooked to this giant anchor that the loser can fall to their death, but the winner can like take another key box, take a key out of the key box to unhook themselves. To save themselves from the anchor pull them in as well. But like Kaiba couldn't stop it, because like the Rare Hunters got like Taya sitting in a chair underneath with this big metal, I don't know, it was like a giant crate, but it's heavy enough to crush her, to kill her. Because she's strapped in pretty much, and the Red Hunters controlling like a crane holding her suspended, so it's like nobody can jump in to interfere to stop this duel, because it's obviously freaking dangerous. It's going too far. Even to Kaiba, it's like a little much. But it's like, but little Yugi stepped in to duel Joey. Yami Yugi had to like step aside on this one, because little Yugi's like, I can get to my friend, which he managed to do so. And then Serenity, Joey's little brother, was along the way. She's showing up here and there, sometimes at the hospital. Then later, Tristan brought her along, so she got her surgery, but she doesn't want to take off the bandages until because the first thing she wanted to see is her brother dueling. That's the first thing she wanted to see, because it was him that got the money to get the eye surgery she needed before she ended up blind. So she dove in to save Joey, because like Joey snapped out of it. Yugi managed to unhook Joey, but he was dragged down. But then Joey just got some air, dived back in to unhook Yugi, which he managed to save. But then I think like he got caught up in the chain and got dragged down again, that kind of situation, something like that. And then Serenity jumped in the water and rescued her brother. It's like a very emotional scene, and like it choked a lot of people up. And it's not one of my favorite scenes. It's like a little mushy, but I still think it was like very well written though, and it's like very intense. It's like one of the best like written episodes of the series. Then once they gone to the semifinals, everybody got their necessary locator cards to meet up at the location of the semifinals, which is on like a giant blimp, because of course Kaiba would go through like some extra steps to make it very grand. But then you see Bakura, who's working with Merrick, because he wants all the Millennium Islands, but Merrick is keeping like a little secret about like the true power of the Pharaoh is not necessarily with the items, it's with like also the god cards and mostly from the puzzle. But people like them, these are two very iconic villains in the Yu-Gi-Oh series. They both keeping like certain secrets from each other because they want to try to like backstab each other later on. But Bakura managed to score 6 locator cards from Bones and his cronies, the same 3 people that used to work for Bandit Keith. They make a return, but not for long. But it's awesome to see like Bakura do some dueling and win, and then you pretty much beat these guys and then sent them to hell, because it was kind of like he's all about like his deck is pretty much like occultish kind of stuff, and it's like very like horrific kind of dual monsters, like a headless horseman essentially, but it's a headless knight, but it's pretty much like the headless horseman, and it's like you know, things like that. And then of course you got like a, you know, ghosts of fled dreams, kind of like some spirit possessing somebody's nightmares kind of card, but kind of weak cards. But it's pretty much like that. It's like just like, you know, ghostly type of apparitions or just occultist type of cards. He managed to beat Bones and his cronies and then sent them to hell, because like Ari's, you know, there's no point in running. By the time I entered this graveyard, which is where they duel, which is an awesome location to duel in, it's like as soon as I got here, I already sent y'all to the Shadow Realm. Y'all just now noticed, or at least now I wanted you to notice. So there's nowhere to run. You're already dead since y'all got here. But as soon as I took you here, but then Bakura got to the semifinals, to everybody's shock, because nobody knew he was even dueling at all. But then the semifinals started, and the first two matches was Bakura versus Yugi. Then like Yami Bakura came out, which everybody knew like someone was fishy with him, because like where does all this come from? And then they realized, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Yami Bakura, the evil spirit of the Millennium Ring, is showing himself again, and it's like Tristan's surprise. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. The last time I saw that thing, I chucked that sucker in the middle of the woods in Duelist Kingdom. He should not have it. He didn't have it when we all got off the island. And it's like, yeah, it's magic, and like you always get that sucker back. Which it was like, you know, I was like a fool. I was shocked too when I first saw that. I was like, this sucker keep getting this thing back. How do you get this thing back? And it's like, it's kind of like, I don't know, like Mjolnir. It's kind of like it always returns to him when he wants it to. But anyway, then the awesome duel between Yugi and Bakura. Now, when these two duel, it's always awesome. And it's like, you know, like I mentioned about Destiny Board, Yugi gotta defeat Bakura before Destiny Board finishes up. And you got like this Dark Necrofear and this field spell. Well, it didn't exist at the time, but it's real now. But I forgot what that freaking field spell card is. But it's tied to Dark Necrofear. That anytime she's in the graveyard, he can always play this magic card again if it's destroyed somehow, or he can automatically get it from the deck to the hand or graveyard. It's been a while since I checked on the description, but he can always get the field spell card back as long as Dark Necrofear is in his graveyard. So pretty much what allows him to do is summon this ghost, which kind of in a card text, I guess, where it's like you can choose which monster to possess. So if a opponent try to attack with a monster, you can choose to negate the attack and take half of the attack points and deduct it from the opponent's life points, essentially. And so Yugi managed to summon Slifer, who's immune to spell cards like possession and stuff. He managed to do it before the Destiny Board managed to complete, and he won the duel. And the next matchup was Odeon versus Joey, but Odeon was pretending to be Merrick. And this duel is awesome because Joey managed, because like one of my favorite parts of this matchup is that Joey managed to summon all the cards he won in his past duels in his in Battle City. Even Kaiba acknowledged the fact that yeah, looks like my torment's done wonders to Joey's deck. Yeah, because he managed to, summon Jinzo from, he won from Esperoba. He summoned Insect Queen, he won from Weevil Underwood, which was an awesome match too. And he managed to summon the legendary fisherman Mako's card that he won from him. And it's like, just like, for the while, managed to take control of the duel against Odeon. But Odeon, even though he didn't want to summon Ring Dragon of Ra, which Merrick slipped into his deck because he's not a direct bloodline to any of the main characters of the Pharaoh's little inner circle. Like Kaiba is, Merrick is, Sizu is, and definitely Yugi is. And like nobody else, maybe Bakura, but I doubt it. No, not Bakura, because he wasn't part of the inner circle. He was like a part of this ancestors of the pretty much like the spirit of this thief king or this tribe of but the king of the essentially the thieves of ancient Egypt, but he's the thief king Bakura essentially. Spoiler alert. But anyway, Odeon begrudgingly summoned Winged Dragon of Ra, but it was the spirit of the god. It was angered that someone of not a direct bloodline of the Pharaoh's inner circle of his like royal court at the very least managed to dared to summon him. Then all these lightning strikes start like thundering down and hit Joey and hit Odeon, so they fell unconscious. Everybody's freaking out, like everyone step in and like help Joey up, and like Kaiba was asshole way. It's like, don't you dare interfere. If any of you people come up and try to help Wheeler, then he automatically loses this match. And it's like, dude, come on, he got hit by freaking lightning. You can take a minute, pause it for a second to make sure he's okay. But it's like, no, then it's like him and like I think Mokuba is like, it's like, whoever gets up first, they automatically win. How about that? And then it's like Joey, of course, managed to get on his feet, and then so he automatically wins the match. But Odeon is still in a comatose state because he was the only one to keep in like Merrick's dark side in check. Merrick's losing it, and his dark side pretty much immediately took over. It's pretty much like the reverse of what Yami Yugi and Little Yugi had with this like symbiotic kind of a relationship. Merrick's dark half completely takes over and forces normal Bakura and like force him deep down in the recesses of his mind, but he still managed to like creep out in a spirit form to try to get his body back, but because he realizing his like mistakes that he's making, because like this dark half is really sadistic. And it's like you see that play out when he went up against Mai Valentine. No, it was the last duel between him and Mai. No, this one, because like, well, anyway, him and Mai, I forgot which order, because Sizu was on board on this vessel. Like she dueled Kaiba, but Merrick dueled Mai. Now Mai managed to like use like a card to match this like I think one of her Amazoness cards to take the Egyptian god card Ra from Merrick's deck or hand and place it in her hand so she can summon it. But since she's not of direct bloodline, she can't control it. It's in the sphere, and she had to read the Egyptian text on the card, which it wasn't there before, and never seen again since. She can't read it, so if she can't summon it, then Merrick's turn, he can read it, and if he manages to do so, he takes over Ra and use his ability and destroy Mai. And since Merrick and his sadistic Yami Merrick put everything in a shadow game, and like every time Mai loses a monster or monsters, she forgets a person in her past, and like they just like any one of those friends, like which mostly are on this vessel, they kind of blot it out, completely blank, and she doesn't even know. She don't even see that face or anything, or body or anything. Like she don't know who that person is. She don't know who's talking right now, and she's slowly losing people in her memory. And she's like in her fear, and she has an arc on her own terms, but she has like a big fear of being alone. she like always been alone, but it's like she always constantly puts people away. But then she meet Yugi and Joey and all these other people, and she doesn't feel as alone anymore. But now Merrick, because of his mind games, he always like to call her my dear. Hold your horses, my dear. And it's like that voice, man, it creeps me the hell out. And then she loses like more cards, and then of course she loses the duel because he plays his card, and she's like these little monster cards that's like little chains with like Egyptian eyes on them, like holographic kind of hieroglyphic eyes, the little symbol of eyes in the middle of these bands, and these like little wristbands, these monster cards, pretty much like nailing her to like a wall, her hands and feet to a wall, and she couldn't move. And it's like, Joey and Yugi try to, Joey trying to hop on, trying to break her free because she's going to lose this duel, but she's going to like lose her mind. We all know what's going to happen. But then, Yami Merrick launches his attack, but then Joey's going to be caught in a blast along with mine. And Yami Yugi took over Yugi's body, copped onto that field, and took the full force of that blast, knocking him out. So they won't take that hit, because they will probably, he can take it even though it still hurt him. He can still make sure he survive. He knows he'll survive, even though he's gonna be badly hurt for a minute. But they won't be able to handle that. They will die. Japanese, dub, they will die. But Mai still lost the duel technically, and her mind still went to the saddle round, so she's in a comatose state. So everything's going crazy because this cycle is now on board now, and super dangerous at this point. And then Kaiba and Asizu duel, and like with her Millennium Necklace, she foresee that he was going to lose because of his own arrogance and pridefulness and everything like that, and his own hubris come crashing down on him. But then Asizu just manipulated the events, let it play out like she knows, and knows how to counter whatever moves Kaiba's planning to make, like the cross card combo virus he always liked to play. And it's like, trying to destroy Asizu's entire deck as much as he can. And she's like taking it on the chin, but then she uses trap card, I forgot what it's called, like Exchange of Spirit, where I used this card a couple of times when I played like Asizu's in combination with Odeon's deck on Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist. You can check that video out on my YouTube channel as well. But she used the Exchange of the Spirit to swap. What it does is like you and your opponent swap your graveyard with your deck. So since Kaiba did all he could to took out most of Asizu's cards from her deck and put it into the graveyard, thanks to this trap card, now whatever little cards she had in her deck are now swapped out for all the cards that's in her graveyard that makes up her deck now. And the reverse is going on with Kaiba. Now, what little cards he used so far in the few rounds, like at least 4 or 5 rounds of this match, becomes his deck, while the bulk of his deck becomes his graveyard now. So he has 1 blue eyes in his hand, and he still can summon his obelisk that's in his hand, but he requires to use Soul Exchange in order to sacrifice Asizu's cards on her side of the field to make up the 3 monster requirement to make the sacrifice. But Asizu see that coming. She has a trap card Blast Sphere, I think it's called, and it's like it's on the field, and she can attach to whatever monster on her opponent's side of the field she choose to, and she obviously going to choose Obelisk because that's what she sees him summoning. As soon as Obelisk makes an attack, that trap card activates, destroying the monster, and whatever attack points that monster had is directly deducted from the opponent's life points. Since it's 4,000, Kaiba will automatically lose the duel. But thanks to the Egyptian rod, which used to be Kaiba's ancestor belongings, it helped Kaiba, force him to see images of his ancient past, and mostly his blue eyes. It's like, and according to him, was like, it's like my blue eyes calling me, but this is like go against all my complete strategy. But something's forcing me to summon my blue eyes, and if I don't summon it, like if I want to win this duel, I gotta summon my blue eyes. So he summons his blue eyes white dragon, sacrificing one of his monsters and Obelisk, completely destroying Caesar's strategy entirely, completely wrecking her perception of her views on how destiny works and how is unshaken and can't be changed. But Kaiba inadvertently showed her that you can make your own destiny. You can't be so rigid with your how you view how destiny work. And you get to see that play out a lot in the Yu-Gi-Oh series, especially with Jaden in Yu-Gi-Oh GX, when he deals with Astro Phoenix, which we'll get to in the future when we get to it. But Kaiba wins, and then last matchup on the entire arc of this season, when good Merrick, or goodish Merrick, has the Bakura help him reclaim his body, and in return he'll give him all the secrets that he knows about what's going on with the million islands and so forth. And so there'll be a battle between evil guys, which is a cool thing to see. And these two are formidable duelists in their own right, but one actually has an Egyptian god card. So, but unbeknownst to good Merrick, he didn't realize the full potential of the Egyptian god card Ra, the winged dragon of Ra. So, but dark Merrick does. So it completely overwhelms them both, despite Bakura's efforts, which we wasn't expecting him to beat Merrick at this point, but it was interesting to see nonetheless. So Dark Bakura was sent to the Shadow Realm, and it was a funny exchange between these two, that Dark Merrick was sitting there going over about the Shadow Realms will take your very soul, and then Bakura was like, I'm firmly aware how the Shadow Realm works. It's cracked me up. It's like you don't have to go over that stuff. He knows how the stuff work. He does it before too. It's kind of funny exchange. It's minor, but I think it's very funny. But Bakura loses, and this getting towards the end of this arc, because the vessel is somehow being taken over, and they're getting hijacked, and that ends the Battle City arc. And we'll begin to the season 3, 2 arcs in one, the virtual world arc. Well, I gotta double check and see if the virtual arc is on its own, but I think is also in between. It's mixed in with the final rounds of the Battle City tournament. Well, I want to mention this now in case I don't bring it up. What I was about to say. Yeah, this virtual arc should have been. It definitely is about Kaiba, and there's it reminds me of something that's going to be happening in the final season of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monster series. That need to show it's kind of like with the Vegeta, where it's he doesn't give him his time to shine. Kaiba doesn't get his necessary time to shine to beat these are essentially his baddies he'll be dealing with, anybody involving Kaiba and Mokuba in some fashion. But once again, they'll be dealing with Yu-Gi-Oh! Yugi ultimately helping out, saving the day, ultimately, technically. But I was kind of hoping like see Kaiba become fortuitous and beating. He beats a big bad guy. We'll get to it when we get to it next month. But he should be ultimately getting his time to shine on any villain he come across with along this arc. But once again, we'll get to it. I just thought I'd bring it up in case I forget that. Yeah, Kaiba should be getting his moment to shine dealing with these next group of baddies. But he dealt with only a couple, one minor and one bigger, but not the it's like a two bigger big bad guys, and just we'll get to it. But it's just like ultimately, like, you know, he had to share the limelight with Yugi when it comes to dealing with these bad guys. But anyway, it's already an hour and a half. This is like like I said, this is one of my favorite arcs. I love Battle City. It's like an awesome tournament. It's one of my favorite tournaments. But yeah, please leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of the Battle City Season 2 arc of Yu-Gi-Oh! And which one was your favorite duel? What was your favorite moment? At which moments you hated or liked the least? Leave a comment below if you're watching this on YouTube in the future. And please, once again, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to Talkative Carl on YouTube, Patreon, Twitch, and Twitter. And if there's any you know, few episodes that you want me to review, check out my Patreon. There's information about like how you might help support the channel so we can build this talkative community. As one of my loyalists, Daniel, he put like a hashtag here. What was that? We are talkative. Hashtag we are talkative. I'm liking that. That was like a pretty sweet thing to say. So yeah. Yeah, thank you all for joining me. Within like a week or two, I'll be doing the season 2 of Jackie Chan Adventures for a review of that. So stay tuned for that. And I'll definitely be back for season 3 review for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters next month. So stay tuned for that. So take care, everybody. I'll see you all soon.